Bem-vindas, bem-vindos. Eu vou ter o prazer hoje de conversar com a Meirav Safdie e o Daniel Shek. Os dois são israelenses, os dois são integrantes do movimento Bring Them Home. A Meirav foi casada com um brasileiro, fala português. O Daniel fala várias línguas, é diplomata de carreira, mas não fala português, então a gente vai fazer uma conversa aí bilíngue, um pouco em português, um pouco em inglês. So welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here, Daniel and Meirav.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to meet you.
Mm-hmm. So Daniel, tell us about Bring Them Home. You are a grassroots movement, maybe a little bit of a political movement, and tell us the story. Of course, you began as a movement after October 7th, of course, but let us know how the whole thing, the whole organization happened.
Okay, so the official name of the organization is the Fórum of Families of Hostages and Missing Persons. The slogan that we initiated, and I'm glad that you quoted because it means that it worked, is Bring Them Home Now. But the official name is the Fórum of Families of Hostages. It's you call it a grassroots movement, which it is. It's a civil society-based organization that was created on October 8th, a day after what is known in Israel as Black Saturday, October 7th. And I use the verb was created, but it's maybe not the right verb because it sort of happened. It emerged. Suddenly it was there. Nobody planned it because everything was in chaos. But the core of the organization was the initiative of a few families of people who were presumed to be hostages. Nobody knew anything for certain. And these families found each other. And it turned out that each of them knew someone, and that someone knew another someone. And some of these people had specific expertise in issues that seemed relevant. Some of them were involved in negotiations of hostage takings in the past. Some had a background in the security services. Others were more in the legal world. And one thing led to another. And very quickly, within 2 or 3 days, there were literally hundreds of volunteers who showed up in an office building in central Tel Aviv, belonging to one of the people who were personally involved, who had a family member who was abducted, who still is, by the way. And all these people started working without any methodology, without any planning or clear strategy. The lawyers knew what they were doing. The doctors knew what they were doing. The psychologists knew what they were expected to do. The media experts knew what to do. And in that manner, the forum started working. And the word spread very quickly, and hundreds of family members. I remind you, at the beginning, we talk about nearly 250 families multiplied by any number of family members who showed up. There were a lot of people there, and it was tremendous distress. And I don't know, maybe Meirav wants to tell a little bit about the atmosphere there. It was havoc, it was chaos, but there was so much goodwill and so much hope and so much willingness to support these people whose lives had exploded suddenly. It was really a very, very special moment. It was civil society at its best.
Thank you, Ambassador. If I may add, you have to understand the ambience. The ambience was such an emergency call for each one that had capability, that was not mobilized to the army. Everyone that was here at home had to just step up and help and do something to support, dar apoio, support to those families that suddenly found themselves without their dear ones. And it's a situation that nothing in your life prepares you to deal with it. Nothing that you saw, nothing that you ever read in your books. And look how many books you have behind you. Nothing that anyone ever did simulations with you. What are you going to do? Who are you going to call? How are you going to act? How are you going to confront the fact that your dear one is not that? And when the ambassador says that we were over 250 families, please note that there was such a chaos. Nobody knew at that time who was murdered, who is missing, and who is actually kidnapped, abducted by proof of a photo. Just one thing that Mr. Shek did not relate to, and it was in answer, and I would like to, with his permission, to put it just straightforward. This is a non-political NGO, apolitical, not left. Do you want to elaborate more on this, Mr. Shek, maybe?
No, it's very simple. The idea is we are a single issue organization. The only thing that we are interested in is supporting the families and doing whatever a civil society organization can do in order to promote the liberation of their loved ones. And it is in our interest not to be political for the simple reason that we're talking about thousands of people who are involved. And obviously, you have all political views represented there. There are people from the left, from the right, from the center. There are people religious with the kippah. There are people who are kibbutzniks, who are completely secular. There are young people. There are older people. We want to keep it as broad as possible because our concern is to help the families. And if certain families don't feel comfortable with us, then we miss the purpose. Now, I do want to say, to be fair, there are family members who are involved in the forum who, in their own initiative, in their own private lives, choose to take a political position, which is completely legitimate. This is a free country, and we are a free and pluralistic organization. We can decide on a certain day, the leadership of the forum, that today our position is A, and then Meirav, as an example, who, if she is a family member, goes out, meets a journalist, and says the exact opposite. It's fine, no problem. Nobody dictates anything. But as a forum, under the banner of Bring Them Home Now, we do not make politics. And sometimes people get confused because sometimes we have a position against the government. But it's not because we're politically against the government. It's because they are the government. So obviously, who shall we turn to? They have the responsibility, they have the power. So if we disagree about the policy of the government on a particular issue, mostly it's about its disagreements around a possible agreement for the liberation of hostages, then we will say so. But it's not politically motivated. It's just because they are the people in charge. And the only thing that we can't do, and we don't do, is negotiate with Hamas. Obviously, we don't have the authority to do it, and we don't have any way to do it. Sometimes I think that it's a pity, but no, that's a different story.
Mainly, we don't have the exchange currency, Leila, you understand? How can you negotiate? For us, any price is valid, and us, as the organization built around the families, we have nothing to give in exchange.
Meirav, uma pergunta pessoal. Você tem algum parente ou amigo entre os reféns?
No. I just want to translate the question for Mr. Shek.
Yeah. Okay, no problem.
No, it's for you to answer. You can answer. I trust you.
Okay,
I'm sure you won't say anything.
Relatives or loved ones or friends among the hostages.
So I can answer in Portuguese because this is not.
Go ahead.
Não tenho nenhum membro da minha família que é envolvido ou que está em Gaza ou que está sobrevivente da Nova ou que está em volta de Gaza, nada. Eu sou uma das centenas voluntárias que sentiram uma necessidade de ir dar tudo que nós temos para ajudar nessa tragédia, nessa anomalia. Esse é o pior massacre que aconteceu, o pior desastre que aconteceu ao povo judeu desde o Holocausto. And I'm just a volunteer.
What about yourself, Daniel? Do you have any family members, loved ones among the hostages?
No. It's interesting that you asked, because there was I met with a group of visitors from the United States this morning, and there was this whole discussion about the personal involvement and how this country, the entire country, is traumatized. So I don't have, luckily, any family members who were murdered or who are abducted or who were wounded, and I feel very lucky. But I have been in the Fórum since October 10th, nearly every day. And, you know, when you're surrounded by so much sadness and concern and panic and distress and pain, many of the families, don't forget, are not just families of people who are abducted. Many of them also lost members who were killed. And many of the hostages who returned, luckily, still have members, spouses or friends or other family members who are still abducted. So there's this mixture. So I don't have family members, but I feel I dare to say that the Fórum has become a sort of community of people who feel the same way. And I feel that I'm a member of that community, but I also realize that sometimes there are difficult days. You know, I won't say the opposite. You go home and you feel the burden of all the things that you hear and you do and you think. And then I remind myself that my burden is 10 times smaller than that of the family members. And the burden of the family members is 10 times smaller than the hostages themselves. So I'm sort of at the bottom of the food chain. So I pull myself together, and the next day I'm there to try and help.
How many people belong to the Fórum? How many people are working, actually?
Okay, so I'll give a small explanation. Maybe Meirav will want to add. We started off a few hundred. We are now many thousands all around the world. In, I think, 80 countries. We have local branches. Some of them are just 3 or 4 people. In some cases, in bigger cities with bigger Jewish communities, there are dozens, maybe 100 people who sort of work. They're volunteers. But I'd say that at our headquarters, there are probably a few hundred people. Some of them are there every day or nearly every day, and some of them come twice a month, you know, but they're all involved in some way. I'll go back a little bit. At the beginning, I'm sure Meirav felt the same way. Nobody thought that this would take more than a few weeks. We were sure that this is a sprint. This is going to be a big effort for a few weeks and then it'll be over. Gradually, we understood that this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And now we understand that it's the worst kind of marathon. Why? Because the finish line keeps moving. You never see the end. You never know exactly when the end happens. And emotionally, I think that is the most difficult thing for the families. Because if you know, okay, it's going to last another 3 months and then it's over, then you can sort of dose your emotional fortitude and your energies. Here you don't know. So at some point we understood that we need some continuity. Not everybody can be a volunteer for months and months. People have to make a living. So now we are a hybrid organization with, I don't know, Meirav, correct me if I'm wrong, something like 15 or 20% are paid?
15, 20% of you say the volunteers that come.
Of the people in the forum.
Yes.
Yes. These are the professionals. We need it in order to have a sort of a structure, a skeleton. All the others are still volunteers. I'll mention that one of the professional groups I didn't mention earlier is my own. We are a small group of former Israeli diplomats. All of us retired. We served in all sorts of places around the world. And we serve as consultants and as sort of the go-to people for the international aspects of the forum. And all of us are volunteers, all of us.
Mm-hmm. What about funding, Meirav? O financiamento são doações, eu suponho.
Exactly. It's 100% all our budget and all our the finance of our activities is 100% philanthropic. All donations from the public, from the Israelis, and from Jewish organizations and non-Jewish organizations, actually, also around the world.
And individuals.
And individuals. So we got $0 from the government. The government does take care of helping directly the families of the hostages if on a regular basis. There is a law also that was composed in this sense. However, all the battle and all the expenses around the fight to bring them home and fast, we all finance it by donations. Actually, this is my team. I'm a part of the fundraising team, and it could be an interesting point here for the Brazilian public. That's what I did in Brazil. When I lived 20 years in Brazil, I didn't work. I was volunteer in UNIBIT, in TENIAD, all those organizations and more and others. And what did I do? I wanted to help the weak ones. How? By doing so many projects and raising money. And when I arrived to the headquarters, my first day that I arrived to the headquarters, our NGO, Bring Them Home, I met with Mr. Shek. And I told him, I'm here. Please tell me, what do you need from me? I didn't know him before. And he said, Meirav, you know yourself. You know what you're good at. You know what is your comparative advantage. You know what you can offer us. We need everything. And you don't know, you know what? We don't even know what we need. Go, dig inside you, and know what you can bring to us to help them come back home. So it's 100% donations. And by the way, if there's somebody that is listening now to us and wants to make a contact with me and donate, every cent is important for us.
I'll just add one remark and a question to Meirav. There are certain advantages at not being financed by the government. It gives us independence. We don't feel obligated. Now we don't. Again, some people always ask about the relationship with the government. We don't work for the government. We don't work against the government. We are independent. Sometimes we work hand in hand, and there are many areas where we work very well with the parallel government institution. For example, we, the diplomats, we take care, in many ways, we send a lot of delegations overseas to meet people, political leaders, media, other influential people. We do this often with the help of the foreign ministry, always with the help of the local embassy. And this works very well. But we are not obligated to anything. But maybe, Meirav, you want to say a few words about what we spend the money on.
Of
what
course.
are the big expenses?
Of course. So, Leila, let's put an order, okay? This NGO has one sole objective: to bring them back as fast as possible yesterday, at any price. And how do we do this? We just mentioned that we do not have a seat around the negotiation table. So what are we doing? How do we intend to bring them back? The whole point is not to let the subject go down of the manchetes, the headlines. And not only that, mobilize the public opinion in Israel and the public opinion outside Israel, to exercise its power and its influence on those who take the decisions, on the cabinets, on the governments. We do it in Israel, we do it abroad. I'm sure you all already saw all our banners, the black, red, and white, bring them home. By the way, if you want an explanation for the choice of the colors, I can talk about it later. That it's not.
Yeah, please go ahead.
It's not blue. This boils inside of me, because people have to understand it's not a national conflict between Palestine and Israel when we talk about bringing the hostages back. This is crime against humanity. And when we show the colors, the black, the red, the white, the emergency, the scream, is to put all the weight on the idea and on the perception of one that watches this, that this is crime against humanity. This cannot be dealt as if there is a war. On the 6th of October, there wasn't war between Palestine and Israel. So this is entry parenthesis, But how do we spend the money? What do we do with the budget? What do we do with the money that is collected from the public? First is a direct financial aid to the family. You must imagine that the parents, the brothers, the sisters, the children, the wives, people stop their lives. They're not functioning. They are living an endless nightmare. So they need to pay their bills, they need to pay mortgage, they need to pay the rent, they need to pay doctors, they need to they left their jobs. Direct financial aids to the family. Second, we have to finance all the banners, all the billboards, all the rallies and assemblies that we do. I don't know if you heard about the Hostages Square, but every Saturday night, traditionally, every Saturday night, we're doing a huge rally when we invite people that influence public opinion to participate and giving an echo to the scream of the families. The families are gathering, important people are coming, guests. We had diplomats coming and making a speech, giving all their supports to our fight. So we have to finance all those activities. Another great thing that we're doing, which cost us a lot, is the legal action to the ICC. Daniel, you want me to talk about the ICC, or you want to say some
Whatever.
words?
I can say a few words about it,
It's
but maybe a
just
little bit about the mental health support, the social services, things like that.
So the mental health, of course, we have a program that assists the family in coping with the situation. This is as from the beginning, when the health department, all the health ministry had to do so many other things. We had wounded, and we had it was a chaos in the hospitals. So we had a huge team of about 50 or 60 psychologists that gave 24/7 support to the members of the families that were here. And today we still have this ongoing program with a fewer numbers of those psychologists, only that now they're paid. In the beginning, they were all volunteers. So this is the health program that we have.
So maybe I'll say a few words about the ICC, the International Criminal Court.
Yeah, I just because it's in Portuguese, very often there is a confusion between the International Criminal Court, which is the Tribunal Penal Internacional in Portuguese, and International Court of Justice. Just to explain, we are talking about the ICC, which is the TPI in Portuguese. Now go
Very
ahead, please.
So the International Criminal Court, which prosecutes individuals, not countries. The ICJ, the International Court of Justice, is for countries, for nations. The ICC goes after individuals. Israel does not recognize the Rome Statute, the court, like several other countries. I don't know if Brazil is a member. But the United States, for example, doesn't recognize it, and a few other countries. So the official Israel can't do anything in the ICC. But we, as an NGO, we can. And we decided at some point that the heads of Hamas need to be prosecuted. And we have an amazing team of lawyers specializing in international law, including a brilliant young woman who, incidentally, completely by coincidence, wrote her PhD thesis on Israel's policy on hostage taking.
Wow.
So it's unbelievable from a legal aspect. So anyway, they prepared a thick document of over 1,000 pages with evidence of crimes committed by Hamas. And for the last few months, nearly every week, we send people to testify. These people can be former hostages or family members or experts, all sorts of people who go to the court in The Hague, accompanied by legal counsel, by a psychologist, because often it's a very difficult experience. Sometimes security is needed. So you understand this is a big project. And we hope that in the end, the prosecutor of the court, Karim Khan, who we hosted in Israel and showed him all the sites where these crimes happened, that he will decide to pursue at least 3 top members of Hamas. Of course, we understand that they probably won't be arrested because they won't leave Gaza. But once there are arrest warrants against them, there are many things that we can do against the organization. We can demand countries to freeze their assets, their finances, their bank accounts, all these things. These things can hurt the organization, and we hope that it will happen.
And if I just to add to Mr. Shek, it is not only that we seek the issue of warrant arrests, not only that we seek by this legal action the freeze of assets, we seek justice, and we seek another very important thing, for the world to recognize, and the ICC tribunal to recognize the atrocities, the sexual violence, the rape, those victims that are going to give their testimony in the ICC. They are victims, as Daniel Shek said, that were captives or that were abused sexually by sexual rape and violence at the Nova party. And the world will never, ever be capable or dare to negate and deny the existence of those crimes. I don't know if you remember, but there was the Queen of Jordan that said, well, I didn't see, when she was approached and said, I mean, what are you doing for the women around the world? How can you keep your mouth shut? I didn't see any evidence. So we brought the evidence. Our NGO brought the evidence to the court. Nobody will ever ever, never negate what happened on October 7th and afterwards in captivity.
Danielle, do you think it's possible to reach an agreement to free the remaining hostages, the remaining abducted people under this government, under Netanyahu?
More than that, I think we could have reached such an agreement months ago. We should have. Now, you're asking me a political question, if this government can do it. Yes, it can do it. The question is, does it want to do it? I don't have an answer to that. But there's people, including inside the government apparatus, who said that there were opportunities, maybe not to reach a deal for all the hostages, but I think that at this stage, anyone who can be freed, we should take, not wait, not postpone. I would love to see an agreement, even if it's in stages, that encompasses all the 120, including the murdered ones. And it's important for your viewers to understand that for us, everybody is a hostage. It doesn't matter if they are dead or alive. They are hostages, and we treat them in the equal importance. Some people think, and it might make sense, that it's more urgent to try and save the living ones. It does make sense. But in the end, we want every single one of these 120 remaining hostages back home. I actually think that although we hear a little bit less about it now, there is still some sort of dynamic in the negotiation about a deal, and I'm still hopeful that it will happen in the next few weeks. But if it fails again, it's time is such an important factor, especially for some of the more fragile hostages. I remind you that there are still two infants, two babies, small children who are hostage. There are young women. There are elderly people. 3 of them were declared dead just recently. And I mean, how can you be surprised? These are people who are over 80. How long can they survive without their medication, without medical care? And, simply because they lose motivation to live under such terrible circumstances. So, yes, it is important that it be done urgently, and we don't have leverage on Hamas, unfortunately, but we do expect the Israeli side to do everything possible in order to reach the deal. I must say that currently the Americans, who are sort of the intermediates, they are saying that the ones who are rejecting the deal are Hamas, not Israel.
And how do you see the operation about 10 days ago, who which rescued the 4 hostages, Noah and the boys? Of course, there was rejoice in Israel, but some analysts said, now maybe the other living ones, the remaining hostages who are alive, they are under a greater risk of being murdered by Hamas, because Hamas doesn't want them to be freed like the 4 ones were. Do you agree with that analysis?
That is speculation. I can't say that. You could also argue, on the other hand, that after such a brilliant operation, Hamas may think, well, maybe it's time to make a deal because we're losing assets without getting anything in return. So I don't know. I honestly can't put myself in the head of Hamas operatives, but I'll say something, and I don't want to sound like a downer. It was an amazing moment, uplifting, brilliant, brave, sophisticated, and everything. But in the end, the numbers talk. In 8 months of a war, 7 living Israeli hostages were freed by military force. 7. Several died. Soldiers died. On the other hand, in the one single agreement that we had in November, over 100 hostages were freed. So it means a very simple thing. In the end of the day, I'm not saying that you shouldn't, if there is an opportunity, save a life, even if it's just one. But the only safe way to free a large number of hostages is through an agreement. And there is one more point that I hear often, and I don't know if Meirav hears it too from Famílias members at the Fórum. They say basically, we don't want these young soldiers to put themselves at risk unnecessarily in order to free our people. We don't want, as long as there is an alternative, and there is an alternative right now, which is an agreement on the table. They say every time we hear of an operation, we are afraid that somebody is going to lose a son or a daughter or a father in order to try and free my son, daughter, or father. And they feel real panic about it.
What I do like to add, if I may, yesterday we had a visit of Ophir Engel. You know who is Ophir Engel? Ophir Engel, today he is 18 years old, but he was captive. He was a hostage, and he was liberated on the 54th day, on the first deal, because he was underage. And 2 days ago, I had the honor to hug and squeeze Yaakov Ani, the father of Noah, also came to the headquarters. What do I want to explain to you? What do I want to say? All those that were liberated or rescued, they know and recognize that the Fórum of the hostages of the families of the hostages is their home. It became their second home. And when they are released or when they are rescued, they come and they join forces and they continue fighting for the release of the others. That's how those people regard this organization.
Wow. So I opened your website, which is media.bringthemhomenow.net. And it's impressive because you have a clock, right? As we speak, 256 days, 2 hours, 27 minutes, 47, 8, 9, 50, 51, 52 seconds. So, and just looking at this clock gives us a feeling, my goodness, isn't it? I mean, it's too long. It's taking too long. É muito tempo, né, Meirav?
É muito tempo, e o tempo é nosso inimigo. You know, we have no more time ran out. We had to bring them back yesterday. As Daniel said, it's a question of a decision. Does the government want to bring them back? And we are here responsible to make the government understand they must bring them back.
Meirav, Daniel, thank you so much. Toda rabá, muito obrigada. Foi muito importante falar com vocês. Queria dizer que foi um prazer, mas esse assunto é tão sofrido. It's more than a pleasure, Daniel, because it's a very the subject is very tough, right? So, but anyway, it was an honor to have you here, and good luck, really. I'm sure that many of our viewers have already or will be willing to collaborate, to donate, to help somehow. E até uma próxima. Espero que a gente consiga se falar de novo depois que todos os reféns tiverem sido liberados.
Amém. Obrigada.